everyone, and welcome back to the Rave Social Podcast. I'm your host, Jaiden, and today we have a very special guest, Stacy. Stacy is actually a client of mine and honestly a friend at this point. She's so awesome, and she coaches women with their mindset and mostly business entrepreneurs, but she is incredible at it. I feel like just our conversations have always helped me too. When I'm creating your content, I'm like, I'm learning so much. It's awesome. So Stacy, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us kind of what you're up to?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for that glowing introduction. I think it's a really cool thing to be able to work in this capacity. And I told you when it came to my social media, I was like, this is the worst part of my day and my business. And why am I hating it so much? And I don't want to hate it. And you've brought me back to like, I don't know, even know if I could call it a love, but I'm at a neutral point, which when it comes to our mindset, like that's where we want to be,
Yeah,
truly.
yeah.
So I want to thank you and thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So I won't go into too far into my journey because it's been a long one, but I started my entrepreneur journey as a photographer. I used to be a teacher, and it was
Yeah,
like, I knew that it wasn't for me, but it's what I went to school for.
yeah.
And like, of course, that's the decision I was making every day, And my husband actually at the time was like, do you think this is what you want to do? And I'm like, well, of course it's what I want to do. What do you mean? Is it what I want to do? I went to school for, you know?
Right.
And I didn't get a job that I wanted. I had our first daughter. We have 3 kids now. And I started doing photography. And it was like my touch into the entrepreneur world, but I didn't really like absolutely love it. But I
Yeah,
started doing boudoir photography. And I was like, ooh, okay, I'm getting closer.
yeah,
Like, I love this. I did that for a few years. Then I started coaching other boudoir photographers once I got through
yeah.
all my mindset blocks and all my holding myself back and how could I ever do this? And even through that, it was like a little bit closer. Okay, I'm liking this more. But then one client that I worked with was like, I love your whole program. I think it's great, but like, I already have a pricing sheet. I already have this. I already have this. I'm here for the mindset work. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Cause I
Okay.
love that part too. And that was really like the unfolding of it all. And I can't do anything halfway. So I'm like, all right, this is my new pivot. And here I am.
Yeah, I feel like I found
Yeah.
you through like a mutual like coach,
Uh-huh.
and at the time you were doing boudoir coaching, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really cool to watch your transition in that. And since then, you've joined like other people's masterminds, right? And kind of done
Mhm.
that mindset piece for them inside their masterminds and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff as well too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I can see it as with most feelings and like things about ourselves, I can see it as a negative thing and also a positive thing. Like,
Yeah.
I've done so much coaching and I'm such a learner. And I think that's where my education background kind of comes in. I'm like, there's so much to learn and I can't possibly figure it all out on my own because one, I don't want to. And two, that would take so much time. And like,
Yeah.
if someone else has figured out one piece of it, then great. I want to go learn from them. But even through that, I've always been the person that can kind of see where, especially in group coaching programs, it's kind of like, this framework that everybody goes along and we flow through the steps because we have to. And I
Yeah.
always notice the people that are kind of like falling behind a little bit. And it's not because they don't want to succeed. I know that. And I
Yeah.
have this intuitive feeling of like, wait, but hang on, they just need like a little bit more. And I want to go talk to them and like help them because I've
Yes.
always been the person that held myself back so much. I didn't think I could do anything. And I thought everybody else could do everything,
Yeah, I think
you know?
that is huge in the online like business space. I feel like that is just I think you could ask anyone and they would say that. They would be like, I just don't think it's that could be true for me. Like I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people think is they're like, yeah, they can do it, but like I don't know that that's like I don't know that
Yeah.
I could do it,
Right.
which
Because
is crazy.
it's either not working for me yet, or everybody else seems like they're succeeding so quickly. And like, why is this feeling so hard? And these are the things that I kind of now walk through my clients with. It's like, we just haven't found the thing yet. And
Yeah.
if you dig a little and kind of see, like, well, why do you think that way? Why are you comparing? Why are you procrastinating? Like, there's always something deeper. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people kind of just brush over, and they're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just not working. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we just have to slow it down a bit.
I don't know. It's just not working is like, I hear that all the time too with social
Yeah.
media. People are just like, I don't know, it's not working. And I'm like, well, I mean, we have tried it for about 3 weeks. That's not even enough time.
Right.
Like, we don't even know if it's working or not. Like,
Yeah.
you can't decide that before you've even tried. So when you
Right.
have a client come to you and say something like that, like, I don't know, it's just not working. What do you coach them through?
It's really interesting. And this is too a big thing of what you and I have been working on, of like almost this idea that in social media, especially, we have to fit ourselves into this box
Yeah.
because we need to be automatically, somebody needs to know who we are and what we're about and how we can help them. Right.
Yeah.
And when you ask me that question, it's very layered because, yes, the things are similar. Like I could give you the main mindset blocks,
Yeah.
perfectionism, comparison, imposter syndrome, fear of failure. Like I could check
Yeah.
the boxes, but it's how it presents itself
In
in
people's
everyone
life.
that's really different. Yeah. And
Yeah. So
so the cool thing is, even just through a conversation, countless clients have said things like, I've never said that out loud to anyone before. And like,
crazy.
whether it's something that's really exciting to them or whether it's something that was kind of holding them back. And what I have found that, like, if I can just be a place to listen to someone, it allows me to see like what's going on underneath their words.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know?
Because like I can tell you, like, oh, I just don't want to launch that offer because what if no one buys it? And
Mm.
then you can uncover like, well, what are you afraid of failing? Because
Yeah.
like why? Like
Mhm.
what's the worst thing that could happen? You could kind of like unravel that, which
Yeah.
is interesting because yeah, I feel like we do, especially on social media, just want like the result basically. We're just
Yeah.
like, we want, okay, if you're afraid of failure, do this and then you're not going to be afraid of it anymore. But like we're humans and we're so complicated that like that's
Mhm.
not going to be true for every person, and everyone has different like lived experiences that
Yeah.
can change
Yeah.
that.
And for some people, it is truly like this fear, this like debilitating fear that I just can't take the step. But then once I do, oh my gosh, my world changed.
Yeah.
And then there are some people that feel the fear, they take the step, they get a little bit excited. And then 2 days later, they're like, I'm never going to be able to do that again. I can't recreate
Me.
that. Truly, me, I've been there. And even like as a photographer, even as a coach, it's like, I can have all of this external validation. People can tell me, oh my gosh, I've absolutely loved working with you. You've changed my life. People have said that to me. Like,
Yeah.
those are profound words for someone to say. I have no reason to believe that they're lying. I have no
Like
reason
why
to
would
think,
someone lie
yes,
about that?
yes. But then you can have that and then also be nervous to take the next step with someone. And that's the internal part that a lot of people don't work on.
Yeah. Okay. So how do
Yeah.
you work on that internal shift? Like, are you, do you think people should journal? Like, what, or do you think people need to do affirmations? Like, what is it? And it probably changes from person to person, but what are some of those things? Like, what
Yeah.
are some tools?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely journaling. That's something that I always say, like, not many things I can say changed my life, but journaling changed my life because I have always identified as being so scattered. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just like really scattered. I can't articulate a thought. I don't really know. Like my kitchen is a mess when I'm cooking. It's like my life was a mess, I feel, when it came to my business, yet I was trying so hard. And journaling really helped me slow down my thoughts. And it's funny because
Yeah.
everybody, it's like you have this external, kind of vision that you give to everyone, or this like external personality, and then you have an internal personality.
Yeah.
And everybody always told me that I was so calm, and I was calming to them. And I
You're
was
like,
like, you have no idea
up
what's going on
here,
in my brain.
it's not calm up here.
I was like, up here, it's like, I'm never going to make this work. I don't even know if people are going to come to me. Like, how am I ever going to find anyone? How can anybody know that? Like, it was just frantic. And
Yeah.
journaling slowed that down because a couple different things for me. It was like when you say the same thing in writing day after day after day, you're kind of like, okay, okay, we could probably be done with this. It's
Should we
like,
chill on that?
in the world of mindset coaching, it's like you become attached to your story. And that's what I
Yeah.
was. I was identifying. I would come to a group coaching program and I was like, I don't know, I'm just so scattered. And then over here, I don't know, I'm just so scattered. And it was like this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Like
And
the more
so,
you say it, the more it's
yes,
true.
yes. And that's like the power of our brains is wild. Like it is wild. Think of all the scientific studies that have been done about placebos and
Your
just
mind
like
is so powerful.
it's crazy. And if we are always focused on the negative through thoughts, through journaling, even like that's what's going to come to be. So for
Yeah.
me, journaling was like slowing down that thought and realizing, oh my gosh, I wake up with anxiety every single day. And I
And
probably
for
have
what?
for so much of my life. Like I was a worrier in elementary school. And that's all I felt like, poor girl. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so journaling really helped that because it was like, get my thoughts out, see kind of like what I'm dealing with. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm dealing with a lot. I thought I was a really positive person. For everyone else, I was so positive. And
Yeah.
for me, it came from this place of like really high standards and really like I meant well. I wanted a lot for myself, but
Yeah.
I wasn't serving myself with my thoughts.
That's like we can so bully ourselves in that way. Like
Yeah.
when I look at other people that are doing great, I'm like, you're doing amazing. And I would never like the things I say to myself in my head, I
Yeah.
would never say to
Mm-mm.
someone else
Right.
ever.
No,
Like
never.
they would never, but then you're just okay like bullying.
Yeah.
You're fine with that? You're fine just
Yeah.
being mean to yourself?
Right. And like I think I talked a lot about that with boudoir photography because as
Yeah.
women, our bodies are honestly, I feel like we give them way too much attention. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, who really cares? I spent way too much of
Nobody.
my life caring. And I think through boudoir photography, I healed so much of that for myself that
Yeah.
now I was like, okay, next, like what's the next thing now? It's not just about my body and like my self image. It's like, what am I doing with this one very short, very precious life that I have? And now I'm like,
Yes.
okay, it's like time to cut the shit,
Yeah.
like,
Like I'm not going to do that for my
yeah.
whole life.
Yeah. And so journaling really did that. And then another piece of it is really the identity work. So, like,
Okay.
how are you showing up? How are you introducing yourself? How are you speaking about yourself?
Okay, so if somebody, because I see this kind of online in the coaching industry where people are like, just show up as like the version of yourself that made $1 million. And to me, I'm like, I don't even know that person. Like, I have no idea. How could I possibly show up like that? Or
Yeah.
I feel like other people might feel like, but then I'm being fake or phony. Like, that doesn't align with where I am. How do you like move past that and just show up?
Hmm.
Like, how do you just show up as
Yeah.
that person?
Yeah. You know, for me, it's really like if I were working with a client, it would kind of be taking you through the process of okay, slow it down for a minute. We would do a little bit of breath work. I'm not a breath work coach, but I'm like, we need to calm our nervous system because
Yeah,
if we
like
have
you're
these
stressed.
feelings, yes, you're stressed. And so let's picture for a minute you as the $1 million version of you,
Yeah.
and you picture your business and how you're waking up every day, the thoughts you're thinking, the things you're doing, the conversations you're having. I would have you like detail it in painstaking detail, like go so nitty gritty and like allow yourself to be like, oh, wow, that would really be cool. And then
Yeah.
how are you spending that money? Where are you traveling? What are you doing? And so you're like painting the vision for yourself. And
Yeah.
then when you have that vision, and then you ask yourself the question, okay, who do I need to be today to make that happen?
Yeah.
And so what characteristics would that $1 million version of you have? Do they say things like, I don't want to post on social media today? No, they don't. They either do it or they find someone to do it or they handle it?
Yeah. Like
And
we're
so,
not even thinking
yes,
those thoughts.
yes. And so, how else do they go about their day? Do they take care of themselves? Do they take care of their bodies? There's a reason why a lot of really successful people have a morning routine.
Yeah.
It's not that they need to do a cold plunge and they need to do this and an ice, like all these different things. It's that they
Yeah.
need to set their day up for success. So, if
Yeah.
you look at your day, Are you doing that? Or are you like, I'm going to snooze my alarm today. I don't really feel like working out. You
Yeah.
take it there to the details. And then you think like these people in $1 million businesses, they are just like all of us, but
Yeah.
they do not let those things hold them back. So where are you holding back? And then it
Okay.
becomes a little easier, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just you saying that, I'm like, oh, yeah, totally. Like, I could see things in my life where I'm like, oh, why am I spending time on that?
Yeah.
Or why am I even having why am I questioning this? I'm just
Mhm.
going to do it because I know that that's what's going to get me closer to like my goal.
Yeah.
It
And you
becomes
look
like
at like,
less of a fight with yourself.
for sure. And you think about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, okay, people have told me before that I'm a little cutthroat. And I'm like, it's really about our time is so precious and it is so limited. And I think like think about a week, how quickly a week goes and you're like, "Oh my gosh, literally what happened? How is it
Yeah.
Friday already? Whatever. Okay, great. I'm excited for the weekend." If someone asks me to do something, like the idea of people pleasing at this point in my life just doesn't really happen. There are things that, yes, I have to compromise for people that I love. I have
Yeah.
to compromise if I want certain things to happen. But, ooh, just because you want me there doesn't mean that I'm maybe gonna come because nope, I was set up with my free time for this. And
Yeah.
that
Oh,
like things like that, showing up like that is a skill. And that's why, they say it's lonely at the top, right?
it's
It is.
lonely.
The more
Entrepreneurship is
successful
lonely.
it is. But then I also think the more successful people get, the lonelier it becomes. It can,
Yeah.
because they are saying no to things that don't serve them.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah. I just recently did a journey with one of my friends, and that was like the biggest story for me was like, what are you saying yes to that you don't want to be doing? Because that is absolutely killing you. It's
Yeah.
killing you. Like, I'm frustrated. I'm irritated. I'm annoyed. I'm all these things that I don't want to be, or like, I don't even identify with that. Like, I
Hmm.
am not an angry person. I am not that way. I don't get pissed, but
Yeah.
I've been so mad lately. And then I was like, oh, it's because I'm literally saying yes to everything and I don't want to do it. I don't
Yeah.
want to go to that birthday party. I don't want to show up to
Mhm.
that event. Like, why
No.
am I just saying yes? So then I just learned the word no. And I was like,
Right?
I'm going to start. I was like,
Oh,
oh,
that's
you can
easier.
just say no.
I
Other
know.
people know this. I didn't know this.
Yeah. And you know what? It does become really hard though too, because I have always wanted to be someone who's very kind. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings.
No,
But
me
these are
either.
things too that I talk about with my kids. Like they get invited to birthday parties and sometimes they don't always want to go. And I talk through with them like, okay, how important is it to you to show up for this friend? How important is this friendship?
Yeah.
And I heard somewhere, I don't know if it was Brene Brown. I think it was Brene Brown. She places kind of like a number system on a lot of things. And I feel
Okay.
like it's so helpful. And I use this with my husband a lot. It's like, okay, you want me to do this thing. Maybe it's like, you want me to go golfing with you tomorrow. And it's my day off. And I had like other plans, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe I didn't want to go golfing. But I will say, you know what? How important is it to you that I go with you? If he would say an 8, 9, or 10, okay, we'll consider. And then
Yeah.
we're going to have to balance that with something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And if he says, oh, I was just kind of asking you, it's like a 2 or 3, like you don't really need to
Yeah.
go. Okay, great, because it's not really that important to me either.
And I don't
And
want to go.
yes, and I don't really want to. And so I'm going to go do something else. We both feel like we're doing the thing that we want to do. And then we come back together happier because
Yeah.
we weren't like forcing ourselves to do something. And that's the
And
crazy
there's
thing. You
not
could
like the
go.
resentment.
Yes. And think like you could go to a birthday party, you go there, you show up, you think, okay, it's important that I'm here. And then you show up and you're like, wait a second. Nobody even literally cares that I'm here. I was just like another invitation. Why did I do this? How could I have spent this time? Like
Yes.
boundaries and saying no is so important.
And I like just don't if I invite someone to do something and they say no, I've never once been upset. Never once. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like you do you, like
Yeah.
totally. It's all good. But for some reason, like the standard that you hold yourself to is different. What? Doesn't make sense.
Well, and it might be too that that person made you feel that way because a lot of people don't share that. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you're not coming," and then they do
That's
get
so
mad, you know?
true.
So it's a little projecting for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. There are some people that are like that.
for
That's
sure.
crazy. We can't be like that.
No, we would never.
Okay, I have a question for you when it comes to like creativity. So,
Mhm.
when I feel like this is true for like photographers, anyone that you probably coach, and a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are
Yeah,
creatives.
yeah.
So, like, what do you do when being creative is your job, right? Now, all of a sudden, you're getting money in exchange for your creativity, but you
Mhm,
don't feel inspired. You're
mhm.
like, I actually don't want to do this. How do you work through that?
Okay, don't wanna do this, like, today I'm not feeling like it, or like, "Oh, shoot, I think I'm in the
Yeah.
wrong profession."
Well, let's do the other one. Let's say
Uh-huh,
like
yeah.
if
Sometimes
you have a photo
sometimes I
shoot
go
today.
deep. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of feeling like blah about it. You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
no, I was so excited. I've kind of lost my passion."
Yeah.
Right? Okay, yeah. And I can think of a client that I've worked with who has a meal prep business, and she came to me at that point. She was like, "I don't know, I just feel like I got into this because I absolutely loved it. I love that I was working with this family. This is how it started. And I just feel like maybe I should go and get a 9 to 5 job. Like my friends are just going to work and going home. That's it.
And it's
And then
so
they go
nice.
out on the weekends and like it seems like no stress, you know? And so first I started with asking her, like, okay, how serious is this? Is this like you want to go get a 9 to 5? Because if so, great. Like there's
That's
such
okay.
there can be such relief in that, but if you would let it all go and you would feel kind of like, oh, no, that's not for me because I got into this for the creativity, for the freedom, for the fun of it,
Yeah.
then it sounds so simple, but it's like you have to find what made it fun in the beginning.
Okay.
And so I asked her that, like, what was your business like at the beginning? What were you doing? She was like, oh, well, I was creating new recipes all the time. I was cooking just to cook for the fun of it. And so then I would ask her, like, okay, do you have time in your schedule to cook a new recipe that inspires you? She's like, yeah, I could do that on Friday, which is like my day off or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And she said that she used to like make recipes and then go have her dad taste test them. And her dad is like this really gruff guy. And like the fun of that for her was energizing her. And she just
Yeah.
lost it because it becomes about the money, about the transaction, about the grind. And a big thing she was not doing was taking time for herself. Like even when she was at the gym, she was saying, well, I should be working right now. And I'm like,
Oh,
hang
so
on, hang
relatable.
on, hang on. You are going to the gym in the morning. Great. And then do you go and just sit on your couch for the rest of the day? She's like, well, no, I then work. Right. So you set up your dream schedule. Why on earth are you feeling like I should not be at the gym right now? I should be working. You're going to go work later. She's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
only going to the grocery store. I'm like, great. You have found a way to turn going to the grocery store into your job.
Yeah.
Like, enjoy that, love it, celebrate it.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I
That,
mean?
yes. And like, this is a tangent, but I feel like when you do become like a business owner and you're doing it on your own and you used to be doing it for fun and now it's your
Mhm.
job, it's like you feel guilty for that. Like, why it should be hard to make
Yeah,
money. Like, I think
yeah.
we tell ourselves these stories of like, it should be hard to make money. You have to
Mhm.
earn money. So you have to work hard for it. And it's
Yeah,
like, not necessarily, but like, that's totally a story that she's saying.
yeah,
Like, the grocery store is easy and not a big deal. So, like, that's not really working, but
yeah,
it is.
it is, and you know what? You are one of the smart ones then, in my opinion, right? It's like
Yeah.
we think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe" it's almost like we think it's too good to be true because yes, and we would another thing I do with clients is go back into their money story. Like,
Yeah.
what were you told growing up about money? What were some beliefs that you have? Because we take those from our subconscious mind, we
Yeah.
take those with us and they are driving the car.
Yeah.
and we don't even know about it.
We
And
don't
that's
know
another
it.
thing. If we go back to journaling, it brings up that awareness that we don't even know is like the thoughts driving every action that we take.
Yeah, subconscious, which is why I feel like working with a mindset coach like you is like so valuable because I can say like, I don't know, I just feel like I'm not working hard enough. And then you can be like, well, what's the story behind,
Yeah.
just a sentence that like I would say to myself or your client would say to
Hmm.
themselves that they're like, well, this is what is true. You can be like, well, what's the underlying belief on that? And that's just hard to do in your own. I think that's hard to do in your own brain. Like you need
Yeah.
someone to see you from the outside
Oh
to
yeah,
identify that.
totally. And that's such a big part of like the experience of coaching. I know there's a lot of negativity around it, and there's a lot of coaches that potentially shouldn't be coaching, or maybe they
Yeah.
are not, they're doing it, I think, with the right intentions, but it can leave a lot of people feeling worse about themselves than when they started. And that's a big part of it for me that like made me sad. I'm like, no, no, do not give up on that dream just because it didn't work in that way that that one person told you. There is
Yeah.
so much going on in your head that if you just provide the space to like slow it down, so whether it's through journaling, whether it's through meditating, working with a coach, it's
Yeah.
just like instead of letting the scramble happen where you're like, I'm not good enough, this is never going to work, maybe I should quit. No, like let's pay attention to what we really believe. Maybe I'm a
Yeah.
little nervous, maybe I'm afraid to push myself, maybe I don't want people to see me,
Yeah.
but those things are all workable.
Yeah. They're just totally figure outable. Like you
Yeah.
can totally change
Yeah.
those. I agree. I feel like the coaching industry, like I get it, it gets a bad rap. And like in some ways I get it and in some ways I don't because I've
Yeah.
always
Same.
surrounded myself with coaches that like are like you or like just really awesome, awesome people. But I feel like I have a discernment that some people maybe don't have, not no fault of their own. I
Yeah.
just like I've seen the back end of so many coaching businesses that I'm like, I know what to look for. I know what makes a good
Yeah.
coach and what doesn't. So like,
Hmm.
but I don't think everyone has that experience. So then they can get into coaching programs that, like you said, are maybe too rigid for them
Yeah.
or like just not, they don't have the support that they need to actually implement it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like, I don't know. I think it can be tricky.
Oh, for sure. And something that kind of came up for me as you were talking is I am always like, I'll be here in the conversation, but I think that I am such an analyzer. And so it's like, this is what's happening behind the scenes in my head is
Yeah.
like, I notice everything that that person says to me, how they approach me, how they handle my objections. And if you don't like the way that you are being sold to, if it doesn't feel good to you, pay
Yeah.
attention to that because that is their process. That's the process
Wow.
they're going to go and
Yeah.
teach you. So if they felt like if they were strictly a cold DM and you were like, okay, I'll kind of see, but like I didn't like the way they said that, but like maybe, and you kind of talk yourself into it, they're going
Yeah.
to turn around and they're going to say, okay, 100 cold DMs today. And you're like, oh, shoot, no, I didn't like that. And so, really, if you're thinking about a coach, like look at their process and try to analyze it and be neutral to it and take a step back and think, you know, not only paying attention to the things they say, but like how they're saying it, how it makes you feel. If someone is
Yeah.
pushing too much, pay attention to that. And if you're not liking it, don't just say yes because they're going to tell you to go do the same thing. Guaranteed.
Yeah. That is like, wow. That seems so simple,
It
but
does.
like I've never even considered that. And it's so true.
Yeah. And I'm an open book. I'm like, I've been on sales calls and I've said things like, okay, well, here's the thing. I really like what you're offering. I don't want to make a decision right now. And I
Yeah.
know that you want me to make a decision right now because you don't want to get me off the phone because once I leave, the energy is down. Like I know all the things, I know the psychology.
Yeah.
So, what will you say to me? If I say I want a little time, what's your answer? Do we set up another call? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
that's the part that kind of disarms people because it's like, oh, shoot, okay, yeah, you're going to really call me on my stuff And it's never in a disrespectful way. I'm like, I just need it to feel good to me or I can't do
Yeah,
it, you know?
100%. It should feel good to you. Like, why would you spend that much money? Why would you buy the course? Why would you,
Yeah.
if you're like feeling like you have to do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Learning that discernment is huge.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, another big thing that we talk about a lot is like you say your husband is a guy who's like, just do it. I don't know, just do it. Just do
Mhm.
it. Like, I
Yes.
don't get why it's so hard, just do it. But that
Yeah.
doesn't work for most people,
No.
right?
No. I think that's another thing too that really led me to, because I had always done professional development. It was like
Yeah.
once I heard about it, I mean, I don't know how many years ago, 10 probably now, like I hadn't read another fiction book in so long because I was like, nope, I have learning to do, right? Like I poured everything into it. And I've learned so much, but the biggest thing is, oh, I like this part of what this person says. I like this part of what this person says. And that's what's so important to kind of gather this, like, that's all. I feel like this whole world is just like repeating everything. Look at trends, right? It's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
back to the 90s, you know?
All
And
we do
if
is
you
so
don't like low rise
cyclical.
jeans, if you don't like them in the 90s, you're not going to like them now. So, like,
Yeah.
great. But maybe you like the new sneakers. Maybe you like this.
Yeah.
Maybe you like this trend. And I feel like that's how we should approach things in our business. It's like just because someone says this is the way of doing something, it doesn't mean that you can just go do it if it doesn't feel good to you. So I
Yeah.
think what I work really well with my clients on is the communication of it. So, like the communication of selling your offer. If you're struggling with that, let's go back to your why. There's a reason there's so much about it. Like start with your why, you
Yeah.
know? And if you just share from that authentic place and you pull little bits of like what I learned from this person, what I learned from this person, then it
Yeah.
becomes so easy. And you're like, oh, I'm not selling. So now the just do it feels easy because I figured out a way that feels good to me.
That is so true.
Yeah, it is. And it's important to some people, it's not important to others. For example, my husband, he's like, if I have work to do, I have to do it. I don't care if it feels like dog shit. I have to go do it. And I'm like, oh, not for me.
Yeah, I'm like, actually, no.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. That does not sound nice.
Yeah,
And
like
sure, are there times? Yes, there are things that we have to do. But you know what?
absolutely.
That's why I create accountability with clients and everything else because I will show up for my clients always.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why I have to work with clients that feel really good because I will show up, but then they can be an energy drain. And
Yeah.
that's just not serving your business.
No, that was something I had to learn in my business too. Like,
Mhm.
because you can lead a horse to water, right? But you can't make them
Yeah.
drink.
Yep.
And so that's what I struggled with because I had some clients that like I would give them all the tools. I would give
Mhm.
them everything they needed and then they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I kept going to like different coaches and telling them this problem and then being like, what do I like? I realize I've delivered. I realize
Mhm.
like they've paid me the money.
Mhm.
I've delivered what I promised. What they do beyond that is out of my control.
Yeah.
But it makes me not want to do it for
Yeah.
some reason. And I should just be disconnected from that and not care. But I do care genuinely. So I'm like, I can't do that. So then I had to just what I figured out was I was like, I just can't work with those clients. Like, I have to attract clients that will be implementers, or
Yeah.
else, like, I'm just going to be drained all the time and feel
Right.
bad about myself.
Right. Yeah. And so I had a couple thoughts that came up when you said that because on one hand, if we think about our business like a medical team, right? Like, let's say
Yeah.
you have this issue and you're like, okay, I might need this for ortho. I might need this for this thing for my heart. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to throw out medical terms, but like, you're going to find the specialists, you know?
Yeah.
And I think about not that it's your obligation. However, if you are or if you are delivering everything on your end and your client is not implementing, to me, I want to know what the problem is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I think like
Totally.
their big problem could be that there is a mindset block And so I think a couple things. One,
1,000,000%.
right?
It's
One,
exactly
you
that.
could let them know, hey, here's the thing. I see what's going on, kind of like call them out a little bit. And a lot of people
Yeah.
don't do this. Hey, I'm delivering this. And ultimately, you can just let the client go. Absolutely. But if
Yeah.
there's any feeling inside of you where you're like, I've been there, I've seen clients who have done this. And I also know that there's an underlying reason. I know that you want this or you wouldn't have signed up with me. And so,
Yeah.
right, it's like we have to get to that diagnosis. And
Of like,
so
why?
many times it's a mindset block. Like
I
they
mean,
don't want
I'm
to be
thinking
seen. They
of
don't want to show up. They feel embarrassed. They feel overwhelmed.
that's
Maybe they're so busy.
100%
Like,
it.
yeah. And so
Yeah,
then
because
I'm
like
like,
I
okay,
can
Jaden, you need me
see.
to work with these clients? You need me?
Yes,
Call me
Stacy.
in. Put me on your team.
It really is that because I've seen it in the clients that I'm thinking of, like are beautiful people. That's the thing too. Like I
Oh,
would
yeah.
never sign a client that I didn't want to work with. I just wouldn't do that. And so at
Yeah.
that point, obviously I was like, I want to work with you. And then I can see, I'm like, they're so scared to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, but I'm not a mindset coach.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try to be. I don't know. But I'm like, I can't, I don't
Do
know.
do you know what the really cool piece of it is, though, too? Is that you noticing that for them is a gift. And if you said to them, hey, listen, I know, like I just said, like I don't need to repeat it, but like I know you did this because you want success and I see you not implementing. I
Yeah.
think it would be a really good idea to work with a mindset coach. Truly, like
And then I'll
even you
send them to
saying
you.
that, yeah, because and yes, one, referrals, why not? And like we have a business to run here, okay? Like, but it would be helping them. It truly would be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like a lot of people don't even know. And that's the hard thing with us working together, trying to sell mindset work because it's something that people
Yeah.
don't even know that they need,
They
but
have
it
no
does hold
idea.
them back. And I've been the person who has all the strategy from someone. I'm like, okay, I want to redo my website. I want to do my social media. I want to do this. And I was not implementing.
Yeah.
Yet
Oh
I
my
had,
goodness.
yes, like
Full
that was
circle.
me. That was me. And the biggest thing was I did not have the belief in myself. It was almost like, okay, great. I can put these out there. And then what? It's
Like
still
you're
not
like,
going to
great, I
work.
have the tools, but like I don't want to use them. Or like I can't use them. It almost feels like I
Yeah.
can't, not that I don't
Yeah.
want to.
And then ultimately, like, not that it's our job to hold people accountable, but we let the fear take over a lot of times, you know? And so
Yeah.
letting someone know, hey, other people have been here. If you want a solution, the solution's there for you. You
Yeah.
know?
Wow. I just got coached. That was awesome.
Oh,
You guys just saw live action coaching. That is
oh,
crazy,
I love
which
it.
is actually what you're doing on your podcast. And I think that's so
Yes.
cool.
Yes. I absolutely love it. I found this coaching podcast and I think I got burnt out on podcasts because I was so hard. I was like, okay, give me anything I can. And I know a lot of people can relate to this. It's like
Yeah.
we are never not listening to something and consuming something. And
Yeah.
so that was another big thing. If you're feeling that lack of inspiration, like go take a walk, go take time for yourself, go sit and just be.
And
Like
like,
a huge thing.
just don't you can still like this is one thing that I have been testing with myself is like I can still post and be consistent on social media and not consume it because that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to read every self-help book. I want to listen to every podcast. I want to be a sponge. I want all the information, but then I get all the information and then my mind is so cloudy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like there's so many solutions. I have so many questions. I don't know
Yeah.
what is right or wrong. Like I'm confused. And so I found like I have to take like the learning slower and be like, okay, I'm going to read this one book. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to not read another book for about 4 weeks and let it
Yeah.
sink in and try to like really understand it and decide if it's what I want or not. And I think the opposite of that is like what we do on social media is consume micro bits of information 24 hours a day pretty much. And
Yeah.
then you're like so confused.
Mm.
What am I supposed to be doing? Do I need
Yeah.
to start an email list or be consistent? What's happening?
Right.
I don't
No,
know.
I know. I know. It's awful. And I feel like it just, more and more, I'm becoming such a minimalist with everything. So, like, yes, with clutter, but also with what I'm consuming.
Yeah.
And so, oh, that's what I was saying about this coaching podcast I found. And I like couldn't wait to listen to another episode. And all it was these coaching sessions that were recorded. And this is where I got this idea. And even when he's saying, like, I love, I love when people teach something to someone else and then they say, you know what, it wasn't mine to begin with. I heard it from someone else and then I made it mine a little bit. And now you're
Yeah.
welcome to go do that for you. That's the dark side of coaching. I've created this. You can't turn around. Yes, of course you can't copy it. However, there are only
No.
so many ideas in the world, you know?
That's
Yes.
and it's a collective consciousness. I don't know how woo everyone is, but like there are really no original ideas.
No, there really
We're
aren't.
all just taking inspiration from each other, and I don't know how you could ever come up with something totally original. Like I'm learning from all of these people and
Mhm.
then I'm taking my own recipe of all of those things that I've learned,
Yeah.
implementing it for myself, seeing how it works, and then I'll teach someone how to do it the way that I've figured out that
Yeah.
works for me, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, the copying thing, it kills me because I'm like, yeah, of course, we're not going to copy anyone.
Right.
You
You
can't just claim to be like the
you can
only
get
one who's
sued
ever
for
had
that,
that idea.
okay? Like, do not copy, but you can be inspired, totally. And so when I think about my podcast, I love interview style, depending,
Yeah.
of course, on the interviewer and how the
Yeah.
conversation goes. But I can only tell someone so much, even with this. I can only
Yeah.
tell someone, yes, journaling can really change your life. And yes, your affirmations can really work for you. They have to really speak to you. So if you don't like the affirmation, the universe is sending me everything that I need at exactly the right time. Don't use that because that's going to
Yeah.
make you roll your eyes and like never even want to speak it. But if you say something like, I'm in the right place at the right time, and being present is all I can be. And if
Yeah.
you love that, it's like, oh, okay. And if not, then we need to make a couple more iterations. And
Yeah.
then it becomes something powerful because it's authentic to you. And that's how I feel about my podcast kind of going in the direction of coaching because
Yeah.
it's like, even in the conversation that I have with someone else, it's all similar mindset blocks, just in like different details,
Yeah, and
you
then
know?
your listeners can say, "Oh, I'm just like Jenny. I'm
Yeah.
just like Katie."
Mhm.
So, I feel the same things as that person, so then I'm going to try to implement those strategies that you've
Yeah.
like led them to,
Yeah.
which is so helpful instead of just like a blanket statement,
Right, right.
which is what you
And I think
generally
that's what I
say.
tried to do for so long because that's how I kind of saw the world of coaching, that was like, create this framework and then go to group coaching, and that's where you can make the most impact in numbers. That's where you can scale. And I
Yeah.
had this nagging feeling that like I think I work best one-on-one with people because it is so unique and so specific. And now I've seen, because I keep digging and learning and never giving up, I don't think like, oh,
Yeah.
I did this one program and it didn't work for me. So like, therefore I'm done with coaching. I'm
Yeah.
scorned. I've seen so many scorned people. And then they're like, you know what? I'm never doing that again. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to go keep trying something.
Yeah.
And now I have found this whole other side of coaching that's like really deep and really powerful and so impactful on a one-to-one scale.
Yeah.
And then once you make a certain level of impact, you can make a certain level of income to match it. And
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't have to be that way, but we have to
Yeah.
keep trying and figuring it out.
I love that so much. Like just keep trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you really do only lose when you give up.
Yep.
Like you
For
decide
sure.
when you lose, you
Mhm.
decide because you get to quit at that point. That's amazing. Okay. I
Yeah.
have one
Ooh,
final question for
okay.
you, and it's a big one.
Okay. Love big
What is
questions.
one piece of advice you wish you could give your younger self? It could be business, it could
Uh,
be anything.
this is, it's subtle, but to me, it's so big. But it's really like, you know, I need to give a little backstory, but like I never really connected with like, you are enough, you know? I
Yeah.
would see it. I knew that people had bracelets and necklaces, and I was kind of like, I wasn't rude about it, but I was like, yeah, okay. I know I'm enough. That's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
I need to like go do something else and I need to figure this
Yeah.
out. I need to make this work and but through all of the work that I've done, I've realized that I was pushing that off and I probably should have tuned in a little bit more because I was always like trying to fit in, not trying too hard, but like wondering why I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
It's been a large part of my life. Like I would be in, even in high school and middle school, like in different groups, but never like, I never felt like I was someone's chosen person, which sounds very vulnerable
Totally.
and like I can, I'm not going to cry, but it was like that's how I spent a lot of my life and I felt so insecure with who I truly was. And
Yeah.
now as I've gotten older and I've just gotten closer to what I'm truly meant to be doing, it's like, oh, I was really good enough just as I was. I was in the wrong
Yeah.
places and with the
Yeah.
wrong people. And
That's
that's all it was. And for me now, I'm like, okay, well, maybe people just didn't understand me. And maybe
yeah.
I didn't even realize how amazing I was. Rather than thinking of all these things about insecurities, I'm like, no, you just had so much more to share. You were quiet because you were analyzing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I
A
think that if
100%.
I would have believed that about myself, I would have lived my life probably completely differently. But then at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I'm so thankful to my younger self that I never gave up.
Yeah. It can be like hard, I feel like, to look backwards because I feel like you can get into that place where you're like, well, I wish I would have known this about myself sooner so that I could have XYZ, whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, it would have changed. Like, you wouldn't be who you are
It would have
at this
changed
point.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
example, I went to college and I have two different degrees and I'm not using either one of them, but I met through a friend I met my husband. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? Those student loans I have, that that time I
Whatever.
spent, that was to meet you. And I
Yeah.
think, gosh, if I would have found a different path before that, then I wouldn't have met him. And so you really
Yep.
think about your life and if you're happy with where it is now, then all those decisions led you here. However, I do just wonder like I would have felt more at peace through all of those things. And
Yeah.
that's what I wish I could give my younger self. Like, you shouldn't have worried
Same.
so much, you know?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
you're kind of like, "Oh, I wish I could take the worry and like that pain away from," especially when you're young. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I felt what you said was very like it resonated with me. Like in high school, it was like I was on the cheer team. Like I
Me
people
too.
knew who I was. Like I was, I guess you could say, like popular. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I never felt like I fit in. I never had a group of friends. I didn't have like a core group of friends. I
Yeah.
really didn't, and I still really don't. I just have lots of friends who are different, add different elements to my life, who
Yeah.
adore all of them
Mhm.
on their own. But I did never have like that sisterhood or whatever that people
Yeah.
have. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like,
Oh, yeah.
why do people not like me? Like, I don't get it.
Mhm.
And then as I've gotten older, I'm just like, oh, it is me. And
Mhm.
it's that, like, I don't even want that. Like,
Yeah.
and I wish I would have not worried about it when I was little. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? You
Yeah.
just enjoy having different groups of friends. You don't need one bestie. You're fine.
Right, right. And it is funny you say that because even all through, I mean, even now, but like people use the term best friend and I never did. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't really resonate with that word. Like I don't need a best friend. I don't know. And now
Yeah.
even like with my husband and I'm like, oh, well, you're my best friend. He's like, yeah, you're my best friend. I'm like, okay, cool. Like we
No,
don't.
that's literally exactly me. I'm like, I don't have a best girlfriend. Like, I don't know. And I don't need one. And honestly, that would stress me out. Like, I don't like that level of commitment with someone.
And I think it really comes down to like we need different people for different things.
Yeah.
And I have really good friends, but it's just that term for some reason. It's more of like, it's not a negative, but it's like, oh, I don't need to put a label on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But when you were saying something about like being, in high school and like I feel like I was maybe popular, like even to say that feels weird. And then to take
Yeah.
it a step further, I'm like, okay, if I felt really secure with myself, or so I thought, then I'm also like, well, wait, why did I not get chosen for like homecoming court or prom court? And I'm like, but I don't want it, but I do. But like, what? Like, you know what I mean? There's just this inner
So complicated.
turmoil. And you're like, what am I even doing? And those are the things that, like, looking back now, I'm like, gosh, I wish that I would have not let things matter as much that truly
Yeah.
didn't even matter, you know?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's so
It
crazy.
really
But I just go back to her in my mind and I'm like, you just were doing the best you could with you didn't know
Yeah.
any different. You were just figuring out life and
Yeah.
that's part of the process. So good job.
Yeah, for
You made it
sure.
out.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah.
Which I think too is like another tiny piece of it, but it's actually a really big piece. Like celebrating that in yourself is really important. And I think that's something that
Yeah.
women, especially, but like we just don't do it enough. And you can, if you asked, you would get that same answer from people at every different level,
It's
you
so
know?
true.
And so that would be a big thing that like you kind of just stop and take a little breath and think, okay, how far have I come? And that
Yes.
you get to show up better and as the person that you really want to be in this next chapter, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, right, if I would tell her, stop worrying so much, then why are you worrying today? Right?
Right now,
Like,
like I'm
why is
doing the
it
same.
not gone?
Yes. That is
Yeah.
wow. Yep.
I was going to say, and that's my biggest transformation for me personally, like the inner work. Now that I'm able to focus on this mindset work specifically, I can honestly say that I have not woken up with that anxiety, pit in my stomach anxiety for 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my gosh, I kind of wake up every day like it's not there. And I'm still like, is it there? Like, am I going to create something that causes it? It's wild. But if I do, going back to journaling, if I wake up, I'm like, okay, I'm having a little anxiety today. This might be the thing that I'm worrying about. Maybe it's this, maybe it's this. And then I get to say something like, but I choose my happiness every day.
Yeah,
And it
and
does.
I'm
It's
I'm
so
deciding
simple.
not to
Yeah.
worry about that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Oh my gosh, Daisy, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You're amazing and you're just a bright light. So fun to have you on the podcast. You're making my day so good. And I will make sure to like link all of your stuff. So if you guys want to find Stacy, if you want to do mindset
Yeah.
coaching, that will be linked in the show notes. Obviously, you have my referral. And thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so
loved
much. This
having
was
you.
great. And I think it's cool too to know that so many different industries can kind of cross over and you can see the connections in all of it. Like
Yes.
this is where I think for anyone listening, yes, we have all these moving parts and all these different things about our business and our lives, but when it comes down to it, it's like, what are your thoughts on each of those things? I
Yeah.
would take a minute to just analyze those, ask if you truly believe them. And if you don't, here's the crazy easy part. You just get to pick a better thought, a more true thought. It's so simple.
Yep.
And the craziest part for me was that until someone sat me down and like had a conversation when I worked with different coaches, it became like, oh, and that's available to me too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And
the
it's
kind of,
available to you.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And it gets to be so, so simple. It really does. We overcomplicate it. But yeah,
So
thank you for
true.
having me.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. First, I want to say thank you so much for being here and listening to my podcast. It means the world to me, and I just appreciate this community more than you could ever know. If you love this episode or a previous episode that you've listened to, go ahead and head to the leave a review link in the show notes and leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. And we're so glad that you're here. Thank you.